guaranteed basic income or universal basic income, otherwise known as monthly checks. Which one of these has the highest probability of actually happening for the low income? I have all the details and what you need to know right here in the video, so let's get right into it. All right, now over the last couple years here, we've been hearing about all these different programs popping up across the entire country, and we've been hearing a lot of talk about guaranteed basic income, universal basic income, and of course, monthly check programs. But I want to talk about the differences between these programs right here in the video because the differences are very dramatic, and I also want to talk about the probability of any of these programs actually happening for the low income. We have a lot to talk about right here in the video, so let's get right into it. However, really fast before we do, thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here or if you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe by hitting the button right down below the video, as I am your one and only daily advocate, and I'm doing all the research each and every day, breaking it all down into these short videos so you can stay updated with what is actually going on during this very busy time, especially as we continue to get all these new bills, announcements, new piece of legislation, reform, as well as any of this talk about money, checks, stimulus programs, monthly checks, or anything else coming up right now. I want to make sure that you're staying updated with all this information and grabbing as much as you possibly can, as money is very tight right now for a lot of people. So again, thanks so much for joining me. Please make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet. And please remember, I'm here for you right by your side every single day to help you out in any way that I can, as that is my commitment and I'm sticking to it. All right, thanks again. Let's jump into it and talk about guaranteed basic income, otherwise known as GBI, universal basic income, otherwise known as UBI, or monthly checks. Are they all the same, or what's going on here? Good question. Let's break these down. All right, so here's what it comes down to. Guaranteed basic income programs are highly focused programs on the low income. Now, generally, these are focused on certain groups of low income. Sometimes they are all encompassing programs that encompass all low income people within a certain area or location, maybe a city, a state, a county, a location, something like this. So they're highly focused programs that are focused on the low income. That's what these programs are, which, by the way, there has never been a guaranteed basic income program for the rich or even middle income. It's not a thing, right? Never has been a thing and probably never will be a thing because these people don't need ongoing monthly checks. So when it comes down to it, all of these programs that we're talking about here, especially guaranteed basic income programs, are always highly focused on the low income. All right, so that is what guaranteed basic income is. Now, when it comes to UBI, universal basic income, are these highly focused programs on the low income? No, they're actually not. So the whole definition and the whole premise behind a universal basic income program is literally just sending out checks to every single person within a certain area. It could be within a certain city, a county, a state, an entire country, a village, something like this. This is what these programs are actually all encompassing. So the deal with universal basic income is that everybody gets a check, regardless of income, regardless of net worth, regardless of all other factors. Every single person gets a check. Now, you can probably tell, which of these programs do you think would be more highly effective? Do you think it'd be more effective to give everybody a check, or do you think it'd be more effective to target those checks to just the people who actually need it? Yeah, obviously. I think we can all probably agree here. Guaranteed basic income programs are way more successful, and highly focused is actually the name of the game because they're actually distributing those checks out to the people who actually need them rather than just giving everybody a check. Let me give you a quick example on this. Let me give you 3 examples. Okay, so you have one person who has an annual income of, say, $8,000 a year. You have another person who has an annual income of, say, $75,000 a year. And you have another person who has an annual income of $400,000 a year. Let's just say, for example, we implement a guaranteed basic income program and we send out, say, $500 checks to anybody with an income under, say, $70,000 a year. So the lower person, the one person who has an income of $8,000 a year, gets that check. It lifts that person up because their income has now increased by, say, $6,000 for the year. $500 a month is $6,000 throughout the course of the year. So their income effectively goes from $8,000 to $14,000 that year. Does it impact the person earning $75,000 a year? Nope. Does it impact the person earning $400,000 a year? No. All it does is it lifts the lower person up to a higher income scale, right? Good. Great. Now let me give you another example. Let's just say we have the same 3 people. The one person with an income of $8,000, the one person with an income of $75,000, and the one person with an income of $400,000 a year. Now let's say that we give all of these people a $1,000 check every single month. So $12,000 of additional income every single year. So now we've raised the one person up to an income of $20,000. We've raised the other guy up to, or the other person I should say, up to $87,000 a year of income, and we've raised the other person up to $412,000 a year of income. Has this helped anybody? No, it's all the exact same thing, because now everybody has been lifted up equally, right? So does a universal basic income program essentially work? Not really, right? That's the thing, that's the whole idea behind these universal basic income programs. Is it's a great concept, but in most instances, it simply does not work. Now, you could also say that the stimulus checks that we received in early 2020, late 2020, and early 2021 were almost like a universal basic income program. Not quite, but not too far off either, because those checks went out to 85% of our population. So only 15% of the population in the United States did not actually receive the checks, which was about 45 million people, roughly. About 50 million people did not receive the checks. The other 282 million people received the checks, right? So that's what it all comes down to. So yes, technically it wasn't actually a universal basic income program, but it also wasn't too far off because it was sent out to such a huge, vast number of people. Is essentially we were lifting the incomes of everybody by giving so many people the checks, right? That's why we're continuously seeing all these guaranteed basic income programs popping up around the country right now, because all these states have billions and billions of dollars. They don't have a clue on what to do with it. So now they're sending it out to the people in the form of these guaranteed basic income programs. They're finding little pockets of people in certain areas, as in cities, towns, certain counties, different locations, and they're starting to send out these ongoing monthly checks. Typically, the checks range from anywhere between about $300 to $500, maybe $700, and in some instances they're about $1,000 per month for per individual for maybe hundreds or even thousands or even tens of thousands of people in some locations. That's what they're doing right now. So as you can see here, the differences between these programs: guaranteed basic income, highly focused checks going out to those low income. Universal basic income program, basically just a big blanket statement, sending out a check to every single person. And then when it comes down to monthly checks, that's kind of what I wanted to encompass here, because all of these two programs here encompass monthly checks. So that's kind of what it comes down to. However, as you can see here, just like the situation that we dealt with in early 2020, late 2020, and early 2021, when the United States economy was contracting because of the lockdowns and the closures and all the restrictions and things like this, the economy needed a lot of money, a big infusion of cash coming into it really quickly. How did they do that? Well, they sent out all of these stimulus checks to the people, and what did they tell us to do? Spend it. They told us to go out and spend it. Well, that was great. The unfortunate part about it is that because so many people had a bunch of money all at the same time, a lot of people went out and spent it, and all of a sudden there happened to be a bunch of supply chain issues. The manufacturers, the people that were manufacturing all of these goods and products that we needed, simply didn't have enough supply because there were so many people and so much demand that all of a sudden there were supply chain issues, because now all of a sudden there's not enough supply for the necessary amount of demand, right? And these are supply chain issues that we've been seeing for a very long time. And unfortunately, another result of this was massive inflation, because all of a sudden now there's a massive amount of competition for the same amount of goods, products, and services. We're all competing for the same things. Therefore, it drives inflation higher because there's way more money supply chasing the finite, not infinite, finite amount of goods and services. Therefore, it's driving up inflation and related to all of these supply chain issues. So you can kind of see here. That's why a guaranteed basic income program is highly effective. It generally does not cause inflation because the number of people receiving checks is so much more limited versus a universal basic income program where everybody and his brother gets a check, right? It doesn't really work that well. Universal basic income programs are good in some instances where the economy needs a huge influx of cash really, really quickly to really pump things up. But generally, universal basic income programs are not really a good thing. They're going to cause massive inflation. They're going to cause supply chain issues. And ultimately, it's too much money supply. It creates way too much demand in the economy, and there's not enough supply to take all that. Therefore, prices must go higher. So when it comes down to it, as we continue to look at all these different programs, what's going on around the country right now, and the likelihood of any of these programs going on, Guaranteed basic income programs are very successful. We've seen this with report after report after report. All of these programs continue to pop up, and with all the studies that they're doing on these programs, they continue to find, hey, this is a great success. We're sending out money to the people that need it. They're spending it on food. They're spending it on rent. They're spending it on insurance and gas for their car. They're buying clothing. They're buying all kinds of things with it, or they're saving it and they're putting it away for a rainy day, because we all know rainy days come, even in the desert, right? Even if you're living in the desert, every so often you get a little rainy day, right? Well, you got to prepare for that, because if you're not prepared, well, we can kind of simply see how that's going to, how that whole situation is going to play out, right? So when it comes down to it, guaranteed basic income programs are very highly effective. They're very popular, and we can see with all the studies that yes, they do actually do the purposes that they're meant to do. However, universal basic income, it's a fun project. It's a fun thing to do, but at the end of the day, it ultimately just leads to more problems, because we're kind of dealing with it right now. That's the problem, right? So anyway, I'm not saying anything bad about the stimulus checks. The stimulus checks were great during the time that we needed them. However, in the event of more checks going out, the likelihood of another widespread check is probably highly unlikely right now anyway. But if you've been watching my videos here on the channel for any length of time, you've been hearing me say this. In the event of another check, I don't think it's going to be a big, broad check like what we saw in early 2020, late 2020, and early 2021. I would anticipate something more highly focused on the low income and or the fixed income, or basically anybody with an income maybe under $30,000, $40,000, $20,000, something like this. Not nearly the parameters that they gave for the last three checks, which was $75,000 as an individual and $150,000 as a married couple. I just don't foresee that being feasible anymore. Anyway, hope this kind of gives you a better idea of the differences between guaranteed basic income and universal basic income, and again, how this all translates into monthly checks and the success behind all of these programs. I know, a lot of moving parts here, but hope this one helps you out. Again, thank you so much for watching this. I really do appreciate it. Please subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet. Share the video with your friends, family, social media, and go back and check out some of the other thousands of videos here on the channel. And as I get more details on any of these programs popping up, or any kinds of money, programs, benefits, raises to benefits, checks, or anything like this that you can get your hands on, of course, I'll be right here for you, breaking it down, letting you know what's going on, and how you can grab your share of the pie. All right, thanks again. Enjoy your day. Thanks so much for watching this. Subscribe, share, and go back and check out the other videos, and I'll catch you again later in the next video.